Hello and welcome to another episode of Generally Speaking. I'm your host, Bill Lawrence. Today is Saturday, September 6th, 2025. Why watch Generally Speaking? Why watch me? What news are you getting here that you can't get anywhere else? Well, actually, none really. I get all my news from somewhere else. But nobody presents it like me. It's the vibe, it's the personality, and you can't put a price on personality. Not only that, but I don't do anything in depth particularly. I do a lot of varied things, and that can be good and bad. Sometimes you want that in depth. Well, you can go to those other channels, but other times you just want to hear the headlines and, the essentials and move on. So in this channel, you get to hear a lot of things and you get caught up on all of what's going on and a lot of extra things as well. That's the thing about my reporting. My videos cover any and everything, whatever I find interesting. So you're here to see me and the things that I have to say. And you like it if you come back. And remember, please hit the like and subscribe and the notify bell. So let's start going. We're going to start today with some animal stories. Yes. And this animal in particular is a snail. A snail. What is there to say about snails? Well, a lot of them live in aquatic environments. They live underwater, and this particular snail lives in the deep oceans where there can be found volcanic vents. Not like a big volcano mountain, but they look like pipes almost sticking out of the bottom of the ocean floor, and there's a continuous flow of steamy hot water just shooting out of the tops of these things. And it's hot. It's hot there. I mean, the temperatures you get into the hundreds of degrees around these vents. And these snails live there. Hundreds of degrees would cook anybody else, but they can live up to 750 degrees. These suckers are tough. And when I say tough, you haven't heard anything yet. They have this strange characteristic is that they don't eat. They don't eat. How do they live? They just absorb. They're sort of like plants in that respect. They just absorb their nutrients from the environment. In particular, they absorb iron. And believe it or not, this causes their shells to be made of iron. These are Iron Man snails. And the crazy world of nature. And then I have to wonder, what does a snail do that doesn't have to eat? Because a lot of creatures like us, for example, are motivated by certain things. One of which is hunger. We have to feed ourselves. So a lot of our activity centers around getting food, even though you don't notice it so much because we're going to work. That doesn't seem like getting food, but eventually we get food from work. And most of the animal kingdom is only motivated by getting food. They don't need shelter. They just live on the dirt, hang out there. It rains, it's cold, it's hot. They don't care. They're just out there. So, what do you do when you don't have to go looking for food? Now, I know a plant doesn't do anything. They just kind of sit there. And I can see a plant not wanting to do anything. They don't have any eyes, ears, nose, or mouths. And, sitting there seems appropriate for a plant. But a snail must have a little bit of a brain, right? And are they bored to death? I don't know. Another animal that I think of that just does nothing is some kind of lizards. There are lizards that live near the ocean, and they'll even dive in the water and get sea life and eat that. But a lot of times they'll just sit on the rocks by the water and they won't move. And they're there for hours, just not moving. What are they doing there? Maybe they're meditating. We look at them as the lower life forms. Humans are the highest life form. Maybe these creatures are communicating with the stars, with, beings from other dimensions. We have no idea what's going on in those lizard brains. Well, that's the snails, but I got another animal story, and this is about the huntsman spider. A lady in Australia was talking about them. I don't know if it's an all over Australia thing or just in her neck of the woods, but she says when you get a home in Australia, you want to run to the store first thing, go to the spider store Everyone's got a spider store in their neighborhood, right? And you want to get a huntsman spider. And these suckers are big. They're not quite tarantula spider size, but they're a good almost the size of your hand kind of spider. Why would you want to get one of these? Well, to make it a pet, of course. Who doesn't want a spider pet? And you take it to the vet, give it its shots, and bring it home. And the thing about why you would want one is because it'll eat all the bugs, snails, worms, snakes, whatever you want. This thing will take care of it. And they'll be very friendly. They'll sit on your shoulder. They'll want to sleep with you. You give it a name. And yes, you want to get one. No, thank you. I'll pass. All right. So that's the snail and the spider. All right. Back to some more serious stuff and something Trump might try to pull, and I've certainly thought about he's might want to try to pull stealing the elections, calling a military emergency. He's already put in the troops out into the fields. He's got them in D.C. He's already heading for Chicago, and what is there to say about this besides the fact that that's happening? It was a lawyer, a prominent right wing lawyer, and I say prominent because she's the kind of person who runs around in all those top circles. Gives advice to the Republican National Committee, is frequently in the White House. So yeah, she's up there. She was giving an interview with somebody or other and talking about the president having a limited role in the federal elections, except perhaps during a threat to national sovereignty. And the commenters were saying, hold on a minute. President's limited? No, president's role is zero, absolutely zero. Constitution says nothing about the president having anything, including in some kind of a national sovereign emergency. But she wasn't saying that clearly, and it was even suggesting, Trump might have to exercise martial law or something similar. I'm not saying he will. I don't say what Trump does, but he might have to. Well, she's way up there. This is the suggestion, and Trump has already, giggled about that possibility when he was having Zelensky in his White House talking to him about how there currently are no elections in Ukraine, and Zelensky saying, "Well, it's a wartime right now. We're kind of in a tough situation to have the situation all normal." And Trump saying, "Well, so I guess maybe if we had a war here during our elections, I could call an emergency too." Yeah, so that's just his plan, and he's putting the troops out already and start a war. He just bombed a ship, a Venezuelan ship, like he's trying to start a war with Venezuela. He's already claimed we're at war with Venezuela when he was trying to deport citizens and claim, well, yeah, there's a national emergency, and I can just claim I've got the right to just sweep people off the street because we're being invaded by Venezuela. That's what the MS-13 gangs are. They're an invasion from Venezuela. So it's really scary what might happen come the next elections. Let's hope it doesn't. So more and more protesters in England are being arrested supporting the group Palestine Action, which has been labeled a terrorist group, even though they don't terrorize anyone. But they support Palestine, and this seems to terrorize everybody in the UK and in the United States. Don't say anything in favor of the Palestinians, or you're a terrorist. So, at any rate, in the UK, they're doing that. And there was even a thing about the cops saying how they really feel bad arresting these people for protesting like that, and all the comments were out there. Then don't do it. I'm sure there were German soldiers must have felt bad when they had to shoot those people. Yeah, just don't do it. Okay, all right. You want to say, well, it's my job. I have to feed my family, keep a roof over my head. Okay, you get like a pinch of sympathy there and understanding. But if it comes to a certain point where you got to watch what you're doing and stand up for your ethics, your sense of right and wrong, right? All right, what do we got? Something I like to do things on police misbehavior, and I never cite the websites that do that. So I wanted to cite this one. It's called Southern Drawl Law, And drawl. What's drawl? I've always heard Southern drawl, and I put the two words together like it's a single thing, but it's not. It's Southern and drawl. What is drawl? I've never heard it except in that expression. So, is there a Northern drawl? Is there a California drawl? I mean, I'm sure there are different speech patterns, but they are all drawls. Do you speak in a drawl? I try not to speak as northerner as I sound. I try to do one of those newscaster talks, very neutral. At least it sounds neutral to me. But I suppose a southerner or a westerner, or I guess an any who's not from the middle of the country would say, no, it sounds like a draw to me. All right. Well, any rate, so next, the this group Rational National, a website, a podcaster, I love him. He was talking about temporary foreign workers. They come over with visas just so they can work, and how they get abused. They get forced into long hours, no pay, and generally kicked around like garbage. And there's nothing they can do about it because they're sort of trapped, or they can go back to wherever they came from. I guess things are bad where they came from if they're willing to come and put up with it. But it just goes to show how the owners and the workers, what a difference in attitudes there are. And you think, well, the owners, the bad people, but what would happen if the worker became an owner? Would they just start, becoming like an owner? Is this some kind of a thing that just happens when you're in that spot? It's like they say, the politicians who promise everything, if you just elect me, and then when they get in there, they become just another politician. So I wonder if that would happen with the workers. I guess that's why when you form a union, you don't become like the owner, because you haven't become an owner. So the workers maintain their workers consciousness when they're in a union. All right, then we got this from the Humanist Report, and it had to do with people wanting to sue each other because of things that were said, and they weren't happy with what was said about them, think they were being defamed. And the idea about the big guy suing the little guy, and the little guy can't do anything about it really because he doesn't have any money. He just has to be shut up. And this brings me to the whole thing about lawyers and how much they charge and how much they cost. And there should be a law against it. But, how can you make a law against the lawyers? Because they're not going to support it. You want me to, write up the papers for you to submit this law? No, I won't do it. It's like the police. Who's going to charge the police with doing something wrong? Certainly not the police. Well, that's how that goes. So this one, fellow named Sean Fu. I like this guy. Talks about economics, international economics, and national economics. He says the UK bond market is collapsing, and when it comes to economies, if you want to strike at the heart, talk about open the body economic and see where the real trouble is. Look at the heart, and that's the bond market. The bond market is essentially the a loan that the country asks from other countries so they can do things they want to do with money. Say, listen, buy my bond, which is essentially here. I'll sign a piece of paper. You give me 100, whatever, and I promise to pay you back 110. So people will be willing to lend you that money if they know they're going to get paid back. And it gets to the point where people don't trust you anymore because you're not paying it back, and that's when you have this collapse. And a lot of things were running based on the expectations of the money coming in from the bonds, and when they don't come in, suddenly all your plans are messed up and you start having collapse. And the problem with that is a lot of countries are tied to each other. When one country goes down, the other one starts shaking, and the U.S. is certainly tied into that package. But we're the dollar, which is the currency of international trade, and that gives us certain protections. But we're running those thin because our debt has gone so high that we can't pay back the interest that these people want. In fact, how it works is, okay, I borrowed 100, I owe you 110. It's time for me to pay you the 110. But I don't really have the 110, so I'm going to go borrow from this other person over here. I'll borrow the 110 and I have to pay him 120. And when it comes due to pay him the 120, I have to borrow from somebody and pay back 150. Eventually, the person that you want to borrow 200 from, he's getting to say, hey, you know what? I see you're running out of people to borrow from to pay back. I'm not going to lend it to you. And that's when everything starts, really going downhill. And it's starting to go downhill now. It's just a matter of seeing what happens. I hope my life doesn't get too upset by it. I live on Social Security. I hope that lasts, and so I'm not that worried about having my job, losing my job. But Social Security, no telling what could happen there, the bond market. So on to something different. In Wyoming, a data center is being proposed. It might be on the planning table already. And the comment about this was that the electricity it's going to be using is more than all of the state of Wyoming currently uses. And that's just a pretty, wow, imagine that. But of course, Wyoming doesn't have too many people anyway. It's probably got more cows than it has people. But still, the data center using more electricity than the whole state is something to comment on. And the thing about it is, it could make the rates go up of everybody else. But they said, we're going to build our own electric producing thing right next to it. And so don't worry about it. Except that there's going to be a lot of water being used to keep this thing cool, this whole operation. And this has been a problem in a lot of other places, whereas you take so much water that the groundwater goes down and down, and now people's wells go dry because their wells don't go down as far as this water that they're digging up. And this brings me to the point of just the whole water resource thing, which this world is just sucking up nonstop. And nobody's paying attention. No one's doing anything about it, because the way humans work is, after the disaster is there, then we decide maybe we should do something right after it's too late. And it's funny, talking about these droughts and water disappearing while you have other places flooding, like Pakistan. The whole place just flooded not too long ago. Why don't these people do something, plan about it? Yeah, sure. You can't just take a pipe and, run it through the middle of the street and, okay, you're not flooded anymore. You need some big efforts. But what the heck? That's what it requires. That's what we need to do. Maybe your town needs it. Maybe my town. I live in Charlotte. We don't really get too much flooding. I mean, there are some places where, yeah, it does come up to the doorstep, but for the most part, no. But still, we're not like the biggest mountainous area. We're kind of on the flat side. I would think we could use a little something, and I think we should also use some decentralized grid. We need to have um, more points of failure, so that if one fails, so many others can keep going. So that's Wyoming's data center. Then another site I see sometimes, Times of India, talking about China selling jets to Venezuela. And this just goes into the larger picture of China getting involved in so many places, Africa and Latin America, which Latin America has always been United States considered backyard. Well, we can do whatever we want. It's just ours, and we do whatever we want with there. Well, now China's putting its foot in and selling military equipment, and building roads and belts. I don't know what this belts thing is about, but certainly building infrastructure. They're getting their foot in there. And now, if the United States wants to start a war with Venezuela, they may have to be dealing with Chinese armaments, which are pretty respectable armaments. Oh, anyway, back to Trump and the Epstein story. His latest thing was calling the whole thing a hoax. What's a hoax? The whole thing, in his mind, just make it all go away, say it's a hoax, and make it go away. So Mike Johnson, the head of the House in Congress, tried to explain it away, that Trump wasn't saying that the women weren't sexually trafficked. No, no, that's not a hoax. He didn't say that. He said blah 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 whatever. Trump meant the whole thing is a hoax. He just wants it to go away. If this isn't someone who wasn't intimately involved, a participant in this, it sure sounds like it. All right, last thing is actually, that's it. Imagine that. Wow, I got through this pretty quick. I hope you enjoyed it. I should have said hit the like, subscribe, and Notify bell. Oh, I'll say it now. And I did. I just said it. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope to see you again. And you have a wonderful evening or day, whatever it is you're watching this. Take care.